Welcome back for another deep dive.
Yes.
So today, we're going to jump into something a little different. It's a recipe.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, it is. It's actually a really unique recipe. West African flavors, traditional ingredients,
Mm,
but there's a twist.
okay.
It's designed specifically for a Stern festival.
A Stern festival.
Have you ever heard of that?
I can't say that I have.
Yeah, me neither. But that's kind of what makes this so interesting.
You know what's so interesting about this to me is just how it immediately sparks curiosity.
Yeah.
It's not even really about the food at this point. It's about the context. Like, it makes you wonder, what is this Stern festival?
Yeah.
What kind of atmosphere does it cultivate? What values does it even represent?
Exactly. It's like we're putting together this cultural puzzle
Yeah.
just from a list of ingredients.
I love that.
Speaking of ingredients, the two stars of this recipe are jollof rice and suya-spiced chicken.
Okay.
Now, jollof rice, probably one of the most popular dishes across West Africa.
Absolutely.
What makes this recipe stand out?
I think that what makes it stand out are those, vibrant, bold flavors.
Yeah.
You're thinking about this symphony of tomatoes, peppers, onions, and all of these spices like simmering together to create this incredibly rich, almost celebratory dish.
And I see here Scotch bonnet pepper,
Oh,
optional ingredient.
okay.
Now, that's not for the faint of heart.
That's true.
So this makes me think that this Stern Festival might be about embracing a little boldness, pushing boundaries, maybe even celebrating a touch of fiery spirit.
That's a really interesting take on it. I mean, even without the Scotch bonnet pepper, you're not shying away from big flavors here.
Right.
The base itself, with its blend of tomatoes, bell peppers, and onions, you're creating this natural sweetness that's balanced by the warmth of thyme and curry powder.
Oh, wow.
So already it's this beautiful dance of, contrasting tastes.
Okay, so we've got this flavorful base for the jollof.
Right.
But now I'm curious about this suya-spiced chicken. What exactly is suya spice?
So suya spice is so unique because it blends this creamy, nutty flavor of ground peanuts with paprika garlic powder and onion powder, and then you get that kick of cayenne pepper
Okay.
for that signature West African warmth.
Oh.
And it's savory, it's spicy, it's multi-layered, and the recipe calls for marinating the chicken for at least 30 minutes or overnight for maximum flavor absorption.
Oh, wow. So we're talking about a slow and deliberate process here.
Exactly.
It's not just about throwing these ingredients together.
Yeah.
It's about taking the time to actually build flavor to create something truly special.
Absolutely.
Kind of like preparing for a festival itself, wouldn't you say?
I think that's a great point. Yeah, you're suggesting this intentionality, a dedication to the craft, a commitment to creating an experience that goes beyond just satisfying hunger.
Yeah.
And I think that makes you wonder if this Stern Festival is about appreciating those slow, meticulous processes, right? Those traditions that require time and patience.
Well, that's interesting. And how does this suya spice actually work its magic on the chicken?
So the recipe suggests grilling or roasting the chicken after it's been marinated, which allows it to develop this nice char while staying juicy and tender on the inside.
Oh, okay.
And then a squeeze of fresh lime or lemon juice right before serving for that final touch of brightness that really brings all the flavors together.
So we have this beautiful interplay of flavors here, the sweet and savory base of the jollof, the complex spice blend of that suya chicken, that final touch of citrus.
It's almost like a picture of what this Stern Festival might be about. It's
Yeah.
a celebration of contrasts, a blending of different elements to create something harmonious and delicious.
It's like a culinary representation of balance.
I love that.
This recipe doesn't shy away from these bold, intense flavors, but it also incorporates elements that soften and harmonize
Absolutely.
those flavors.
And maybe the Stern Festival is about recognizing that balance.
Yeah.
Appreciating that interplay between contrasting forces that we experience in our lives.
It's fascinating how this simple recipe can spark so many questions and interpretations.
I know. It's really cool.
But there's more to this recipe than just the jollof and the suya chicken, right?
Absolutely. The recipe suggests serving this with sides like fried plantains, steamed greens, or even a spicy pepper sauce.
Hold on. Fried plantains.
Yeah.
Interesting. They're so sweet, right?
Yeah.
Caramelized a little bit unexpected, I think,
Yeah.
alongside those bold, savory flavors. So this makes me think this Stern Festival might have an element of playfulness,
Yeah.
a willingness to experiment and embrace these unexpected combinations.
Yeah.
Maybe it's about finding joy and breaking the rules a little.
I think that's a great observation. Is like, the inclusion of these different side dishes definitely suggests this openness to exploration,
Yes.
a willingness to push culinary boundaries. And
Right.
maybe the Stern Festival is about celebrating that diversity, right?
Hmm.
Recognizing that even contrasting elements can come together to create something truly remarkable.
And by offering these side dish suggestions, the recipe isn't just giving you a blueprint.
Yay.
It's inviting you to participate, to make the meal your own.
Absolutely.
Kind of like a festival itself,
Yeah,
right?
shape that.
It's not just a spectacle, it's a shared experience where everyone is contributing to the overall energy and celebration.
You're so right. It highlights the communal aspect of food,
Yeah.
how it brings people together and encourages creativity and fosters this sense of shared experience.
So we've explored the main components here, the jollof rice, suya-spiced chicken, these suggested side dishes. And I'm still curious about actually making this feast.
Let's dive into those details then, starting with the jollof rice.
Okay.
It's all about building those layers of flavor.
All right, take me through it. I'm ready to get my hands dirty. Well, metaphorically speaking.
Oh,
Cole.
of course.
Yeah.
The first step is blending those ripe tomatoes, bell peppers, and onions. It's about creating this vibrant base of foundation for all those amazing flavors.
Okay, so we're not just tossing chopped veggies into a pot.
Mm.
We're actually taking the time to blend them.
Right.
Interesting. What's the reasoning behind that?
So blending the vegetables creates this smoother, more homogeneous sauce, and it allows the flavors to meld together more seamlessly.
Ah, I see. So it's not just about convenience.
Right.
It's about actually enhancing that final result.
Exactly. So after you blend the vegetables, you gently saute the onions in oil until they soften. This adds another layer of sweetness and complexity to the base. Then comes the tomato paste,
Okay.
a key ingredient that deepens the flavor and richness of the sauce.
Tomato paste.
I know what you're thinking.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound very exciting on its own.
Right.
It may not sound glamorous, but it is essential. You cook the tomato paste for a few minutes, allowing it to caramelize slightly, and this intensifies its savory notes and creates a deeper, richer flavor profile.
Okay. Starting to understand the importance of those seemingly simple steps.
Right.
So we've got the sautéed onions, we've got the caramelized tomato paste. What happens next?
Then you add that vibrant blend of tomatoes, peppers, and onions to the pot. And here's where patience comes in. You cook it down until it thickens and reduces concentrating all those delicious flavors. This step is crucial for developing that depth and richness that defines jollof rice.
So it's about the slow and steady simmering, letting those flavors meld and deepen over time. Kind of like the way traditions are passed down through generations. Slowly evolving, but retaining their essence.
I love that.
Maybe that's another clue about the Stern Festival.
Hmm.
A celebration of heritage, of those time-honored practices that connect us to the past.
I like how you're weaving the recipe into this larger cultural narrative.
Yeah.
It really adds another layer of meaning to the food itself.
Well, food is never just about sustenance, is it? It's about culture, history, storytelling. Okay, so we got this beautiful concentrated sauce simmering away.
Right.
What happens next? Does the rice finally make its entrance?
Yes. But first we introduce the spices, thyme, curry powder, and a bay leaf. These aromatic additions create a warm and earthy backdrop for the rice to absorb. And of course, don't forget a generous pinch of salt to enhance all those beautiful flavors.
Salt, the unsung hero of so many dishes. Okay, now it's time for the rice. Any specific type of rice we should be using here?
So the recipe calls for long-grain parboiled rice. It's known for its fluffy texture and its ability to hold its shape, which is essential for jollof. You want those individual grains to be separate and distinct, not clumpy.
So texture plays a crucial role here.
Oh, yeah.
Not just the flavors, but the way the rice feels in your mouth.
Right.
Makes me wonder if the Stern Festival itself has an element of texture. Maybe it's a celebration of craftsmanship, of those tactile arts that engage our senses beyond just sight and sound.
That's a very interesting connection.
Yeah.
It highlights the multisensory nature of food and festivals.
Okay, back to the rice. What's the next step?
Before you add the rice to the pot, you want to rinse it thoroughly to remove excess starch. This ensures that the grains cook up nice, light, and fluffy. Then you stir the rinsed rice into the sauce, making sure that every grain is coated in that flavorful goodness.
I can almost smell it now.
Me too.
The warmth of the spices, the sweetness of the tomatoes and peppers, the earthy notes of the rice.
It's truly a symphony of scents.
Mm-hmm.
Then comes the chicken broth, or vegetable broth if you prefer a vegetarian option.
Okay.
The broth provides the liquid for the rice to cook in. You bring it all to a boil, then reduce the heat, cover the pot, and let it simmer until the rice is cooked through and has absorbed all that flavorful liquid.
So we're back to that idea of patience.
Yes.
It seems like a recurring theme in this recipe.
It is. Good things take time. And when it comes to jollof rice, that slow, gentle simmering is essential for developing its characteristic depth and complexity.
Makes me think that this Stern Festival might not be this wild, spontaneous affair,
Right.
but rather a carefully orchestrated event,
Mm.
one that requires planning and precision and this understanding of how different elements work together over time.
That's a very insightful observation.
Yeah.
It suggests that there's more to this Stern Festival than meets the eye.
All right, so we've got our jollof rice simmering away.
Yes.
Now let's shift our attention to the other star of the show, the suya-spiced chicken.
Okay.
Remember that incredibly aromatic spice blend we talked about?
Of course. This is where things get really interesting.
Okay, walk me through it. What's the first step in preparing the chicken?
You're going to generously rub that suya spice blend all over your chicken thighs or drumsticks. And I mean, generously, you want every inch of that chicken coated in that delicious spice blend.
Okay, so we're not just talking about a sprinkle here.
No,
We're talking about really massaging those flavors into the meat.
exactly. The more contact that spice blend has with the chicken, the more flavorful and aromatic the final result will be. And then, as we mentioned earlier, the key is to let it marinate. At least 30 minutes will do, but overnight is ideal.
Okay.
It allows the flavors to penetrate deep into the meat, creating the most tender and flavorful chicken imaginable.
So while the chicken is marinating, we can focus on preparing the rest of our feast.
Right.
The jollof rice, those side dishes.
Exactly.
It's all about planning and maximizing those delicious flavors.
Precisely. And speaking of maximizing flavors, did you notice that the recipe mentions the possibility of substituting chicken with beef or fish?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
So it's not a rigid formula.
Yeah.
It's an invitation to experiment,
Right.
which makes me think this Stern Festival isn't about adhering to these strict traditions, but rather about adapting those traditions to fit individual preferences and circumstances.
Yeah.
Maybe it's about finding that balance between honoring the past and embracing the present.
That's a great point. The recipe's flexibility definitely suggests that openness to interpretation, that willingness to make it your own.
Okay, so we've got our chicken marinating, we've got our jollof simmering away.
Mm-hmm.
Now what's the best way to cook that suya-spiced chicken? Grilling. Roasting.
The recipe offers both options. You can either grill it for that smoky, charred flavor or roast it in the oven for a more tender and juicy result. Either way, the goal is to cook the chicken until it's cooked through and the juices run clear.
Okay, so we're aiming for a balance of textures here.
Yes.
Crispy on the outside, tender and juicy on the inside.
Exactly.
Kind of like how the Stern Festival itself seems to balance tradition and innovation,
Mm-hmm.
structure and spontaneity.
You're really picking up on those subtle nuances.
Yeah.
It's amazing how a single recipe can spark so many different interpretations and connections.
Well, that's the power of food, isn't it?
It is.
It's more than just sustenance. It's a language, a cultural tapestry, a window into history and tradition.
Beautifully put. And speaking of tradition, let's circle back to those side dish suggestions.
Yeah.
The fried plantains, steamed greens, spicy pepper sauce.
Yes. Let's dive into those. They seem to add another layer of complexity to this already fascinating culinary puzzle.
They do. And they offer some intriguing clues about the nature of this Stern Festival we keep coming back to.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me more about these side dishes and how they fit into the overall picture.
Well, let's start with those fried plantains. Their sweetness offers this, delightful contrast to the savory depth of the suya spice and the, rich heartiness of the jollof. It's like a culinary dance of, opposites attracting.
So it's not just about adding more food to the plate.
Right.
It's about creating this balance,
Yeah.
a harmony of contrasting flavors and textures.
Exactly. And that brings us back to our Stern Festival mystery.
Yeah.
This interplay of contrasting elements, sweet and savory, soft, crisp, fiery, and mild.
Right.
This could very well be a reflection of the festival itself.
I see that.
Perhaps it's a celebration of duality,
Hmm.
of finding unity in the midst of difference.
I love that. It makes me think of that saying opposites attract.
Yeah.
Maybe the Stern Festival is about recognizing the beauty and strength that come from embracing those contrasting forces that we experience in our lives.
That's a beautiful interpretation. And it's further reinforced by the other side dish suggestions.
Okay.
Those steamed greens and that spicy pepper sauce.
Yeah.
The greens, with their fresh, earthy flavor, introduce this cooling element to the meal, while the pepper sauce, for those who dare, adds an extra layer of heat and intensity.
So it's like the recipe is giving you a spectrum of flavors and sensations to choose from.
Right.
You can tailor the experience to your own preferences.
Yeah.
your own level of adventure.
Precisely. And that suggests a certain level of freedom of personal choice within the framework of the Stern Festival.
Yeah.
It's not about these rigid rules or expectations,
Right.
but rather about finding your own way to participate, to celebrate, to connect with the spirit of the event.
It's amazing how we can extract so much meaning from this simple recipe.
I know. It's really cool.
It's like we're decoding a cultural message hidden within the ingredients and the instructions.
Food is such a powerful language.
Yeah.
It can tell stories, convey emotions, connect us to our heritage. And this recipe, with its mysterious Stern Festival theme, is a perfect example of that.
So as we wrap up this culinary deep dive,
Yes,
we're left with more questions than answers.
it's true.
But maybe that's the point.
Right.
Maybe this recipe isn't meant to be a definitive guide,
Mm-hmm.
but rather an invitation to explore,
To interpret.
to create our own meaning.
And perhaps that is the true essence of the Stern Festival, a celebration of curiosity, of creativity, of the joy of discovery.
What a delicious thought.
Yeah.
And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder the mysteries of this West African-inspired feast.
Yes.
Maybe it'll inspire you to try the recipe yourself,
Yeah.
or maybe it'll simply spark your own culinary curiosity.
Whatever it may be, we encourage you to keep exploring the world of food with an open mind and a discerning palate.
Well said.
After all, there's a whole universe of flavors and stories waiting to be discovered.
That's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Thanks for listening.